Still waiting. Hello, I'm not waiting no more. Good evening and welcome to Inception Saturday Night Live. I'm Gloria and I have a wonderful returning guest this evening. I've rescheduled him. I've stolen him from my Open Mind show, which we had to reschedule to later on in the month, and put him on to Inception. Michael Feely, welcome to the show.
Thank you, and thanks again for the invite. And it's a pleasure to be here as always. Thank you.
Oh, it's lovely to have you back. So, we've titled the show "We Are the Gods," and that title, for anyone that would like some more clarification, is a truth for those that have travelled on a path, have come to self-realization. So tonight we've decided what we would like to share with the audience is how we came upon that path, what exasperated the journey, what started to open up, and how we came to the realization that we are not the body, the mind, the thoughts, the identity, or the idea we had about ourselves. We're still arseholes, as you do. We're still playing the role, and I'm the biggest Oscar-winning arsehole. So, Michael, the process of self-realization, like you're totally aware now what you're not and who you are. Could you share with us some of the adventures or research that started to open you up to realize you were more than Michael, the male ex-police officer?
Yes, indeed. It's. I guess on the face of it, it would be a complex answer because there's many contributing parts to that have taken me from identifying with a material body only, and now identifying with the self and what that self is. And in between those 2 points, when we switch the light off at night and when we switch the light on in the morning, there is seemingly no time difference between them. So when I look back at 12, 13 years of a journey of self-realization, there's a lot of component parts that have built the house that now stands. So in essence, I once just believed myself to be a physical vessel. I was doing, it wasn't an ordinary job by any stretch of the imagination. It just wasn't. Some of the things that I saw and witnessed and experienced, and sometimes still have flashbacks of, was the worst that a human being can see. And it strengthens the soul. It strengthens the resilience. There are scars that occur. There are demons that are created, and those demons have to be dealt with. In 2009, there was things leading up to 2009, but predominantly in 2009 marked a transition, and it was the beginning of a transition. And it was, again, that there's been a lot of talk about timelines and different things recently, but it marked a new timeline for me, and it marked a new pathway for me. And the pathway that was marked was a pathway that prevented me through what I now knew, from what I had now experienced. And it prevented me from going back to the previous pathway, because when you'd seen and realised and experienced what I was experiencing and continue to experience, you can never go back.
Okay. Are you able to share some of that experience for the audience?
Yeah. The main the main one really was going back in time, consciously, remote viewing, going back in time 159 years. And it was to the scene of a murder of a 14-year-old girl. Now, this 14-year-old girl had been, little did I know at the time, also her assailant, who was a stepfather, had been around my existence, my energy field, probably from about the year 2006, 2007. And it was a traumatic time. It really was a traumatic time to such an extent that I was fearful to switch the light off at night when going to bed. I was scared that I was going back to that place. Now, when a former
Hi,
police
Rob.
officer...
Sorry, Rob's saying hi to you, and so is Omar. Hi, Rob and Omar.
Hello, you two. Nice to see you again. But to put the significance upon what I just said about I was scared to switch the light off. When you are a police officer, or you have been a police officer, or at the time of this incident you still were, when you have faced people running at you with meat cleavers, with knives, with machetes, when people have pointed a gun at you, when people have tried to stab you, when people have kicked you, punched you, bitten you, spat at you, you don't get scared easy. But all of those things was something I could see and something I could deal with, because it was a physical thing. When you start dealing with nasty paranormal, which you cannot see, and you don't know what direction it's coming from, and you don't know what form it is going to take, that is what was scary. So that was one of them, and then there was lots and lots of other pleasant things, you know. Like,
Can I hold you on that one? I mean, because I can relate to that one. Obviously, you know, I'm labelled a medium because in childhood I saw dead people, even though they don't like to be called dead. So as I progressed through that journey to teenagers, I could never go back to what or become what other people had normalized, because there had been a paradigm shift where I'd experienced something that was out of what we would call the human experience. So basically the same thing happened to you there, that you can't go back. And I do know subsequently you left after that, you left the police force, because I mean, it does shake anybody when you have these experiences. So, I mean, this is for a major experience, and it's not uncommon. I've heard from many people the start of the realization. Some it's a bereavement, but many is with the paranormal, and it's the most frightening. I would hide under the blankets as a youngster. I'd hide in cupboards. I would never go to the bathroom at night. I'm still slightly uncomfortable with the dark, but you know, all these years later. So it's something that you think, well, why would that change you? Because it changed. All the truths you're being told are true, how things are, how things work. That experience shatters absolutely everything in an instant, does it not? So you look for this. There's more than this. There's got to be more.
Yeah, and it does. I mean, people who've seen me speak before realise that I was always open-minded, and that I was always accepting of this is not the only reality. But it's one thing to be accepting of it, and then it's another thing to be bombarded with it. And as I say, the main terrifying thing about it was unseen. And as I say, when someone's pointing a gun at you, when someone's pointing a knife at you, I can see where it is. I can see it. I can deal with it. I can do something about that. But it's the things that you can't see that start playing on the imagination, and you know, your nerves become spiders. You can feel the spiders on, but it's your nerve endings. And you begin, because your senses are enhanced, you begin to feel more. You know, it's like when people say when someone becomes blind, their hearing becomes better because the sense takes over. But your five senses are working overtime all the time, and you become very, very aware of all of a sudden. You become very, very aware of all the things that are around you. So this really sort of turned my life upside down, and as I say, could never be the same again. And yes, I did leave my career at year 17 of 30 as largely, not entirely, but largely as a consequence of opening the cupboard door and everything falls out on you. You know, the teddy bears, everything was falling on me, and it was a case of now I'm going to have to just deal with what's coming towards me, because it's here. There's nothing I can do about it now. It's here. And then that there's no
escaping it. Never mind, it's here. There's no escaping it. I mean, and then did you also, because I want to sort of to stay here for a second, did you also find, so first of all, like in your case, it was because you shared that story on my Ghost Story podcast. Not only are you dealing with the unseen and all that goes with it, but then did you find afterwards, I know I certainly did, every other paranormal door opened. All the uncanny, spooky, whatever, Trevor, all started. Did you find that as well?
Well, once the water finds a hairline fracture in the dam, then all the whole of the water concentrates on that hairline fracture, and it's really now it's found a way in. Now the gap has been made. Then everything's going to take the opportunity to come through that gap. That's what was happening. It was ETs, it was ghosts, it was poltergeists. It was all of these different things all coming at once, because now there's an opening. Now there's a light for the moths to congregate towards. So yes, once the dam is breached, then you can't stop the water coming through, and that's what happened.
Did you find, I mean, obviously I ask other people this question. I mean, remember, I'm going back now like 200 years with me. All of a sudden you get this from out of nowhere, an interest to go and look into something. Yeah, it starts with I'm curious about that. It could be anything. And eventually my big major next one was ET, because I had no idea that the midgets coming to the bed at night were not dwarf dead people or children. There wasn't in my so I had my first area was ET and dimensional beings. I was searching everywhere. What was your first one after that?
Well, it really started with what you would deem to be the angelic realm. Whatever your perception of the angelic realm. Again, it was 50-50 with again what you would deem as extraterrestrial, which there ain't a great deal of difference in on the scale of things.
No, there's not much difference at all.
Put it into categories. It was a mixture between the extraterrestrial realm and the angelic realm. Now, how I would see what I deem to be the angelic realm would be, first of all, multiple coloured orbs just floating around the room. Sometimes there would be absolutely lightning speed shrieks of light going through, like shooting stars inside the house. And then there's one particular incident where I was playing cards, and it was around about the same sort of time as I was leaving the career, and there's different things going on. And I was playing cards in a room that was fairly dark, just one light on, so it was illuminated, but it was largely dusk. And I was playing cards, and I just said, if anyone can hear this, show me a sign. And that's what, and this was inside my head. Within seconds, there was a controlled explosion of energy that actually lit up the house. And as I looked, there was a cobalt blue orb floating in there, and it kept changing shape. And the energy that was coming off it seemed to me like it was being controlled, so as not to like blast us out the house with it, but nevertheless you could feel like a pulsating energy coming from it. And it sort of disappeared as quick as it came. But in addition to that, along the way, there were telepathic invites to go to certain locations, but it was multiple people getting the same invite, like close to the third kind. And lots of different things of that nature, things coming out of mirrors during lucid dreaming, which were Palladians, and knowing that I was dreaming, which is lucid dreaming, but knowing that I was in my own house because everything was exactly the same as it normally is, and knowing going into my own bathroom, looking in my own bathroom mirror, to then see my face morph into something else.
Yeah.
And
I mean, let's hold it there. For anyone in the audience has gone through or is going through at the moment, this is what the show's about. The Colbert Blue orbs. I remember them. They still appear now and again, but I remember them. I mean, they were faster than Superman. And I mean, come on. I mean, they were in and out of the reality. Like, you know, you could. And first of all, they used to be on the peripheral all the bloody time. And then they come to that I experienced very similar. They're still about now. But what I also had at that time, at the very beginning, every time I shut my eyes, if I didn't see dead people, I all of a sudden this like whoosh, whoosh purple, and a tunnel would come up, and it was just all purple. And I'm going in, vroom, vroom, and I'm just going with it. And I've got these, like you said, I've got these blue things flying across as well. And then all of a sudden, this burst, and I'm in the stars. And that, I would just go, wow. I mean, it was just all wow in them days. So I would go through that at a similar. So I'm trying to go along as we go along. We'll have a similar experience, but it will be slightly different, obviously, as it should be. Orange analogy. I had an inkling at that point with these experiences, these paranormal experiences, that I wasn't quite who I thought I was. There was only an inkling for me. I knew I wasn't human like other humans because they seemed exceptionally boring and couldn't see or experience what I felt. No disrespect to boring humans, but that's how I felt at the time. So there was an inkling just coming into my and through the lucid dreaming, the visions, they would tell me things. You know, they would tell me you're this and that, and I go, yeah, right. Do you know what I mean? As you do. You know, already been sort of slightly programmed in the matrix. So from that point, did you also just sort of get an inkling, or did yours come later?
Being human to me is being the same and dressing the same and sounding the same and doing the same as everybody else. That to me is being human.
Yeah.
And even as I've said before, even at the age of 7, 8, I always felt deeply, not just a God, I don't like this house or I don't like this town, but it was a real deep sensation that for one, I wasn't from here. Yeah. And for 2, I didn't necessarily belong here. Yeah. And for 3, that always felt that there was a greater purpose than me being here. But when, you know...
We didn't, but did you know, I'm going to jump in because we're just chatting, I'm not interviewing him. Because you're calling me back, even though you had those sort of thoughts and knowing... Did you, I mean, I remember trying to commit suicide because I didn't belong here. I attempted suicide because I didn't, what am I doing here? Let's get out. But I didn't know, there was no self-realization, but I knew I didn't fit in. Is that what you're trying to say? This is alien, basically alien to you.
It was because it didn't, again, you know, bearing in mind that I was 7 and 8 and maybe a little bit higher, a little bit lower, but these are strange conversations, I think, for the 7 and 8-year-old to be having with themselves. And there's obviously a greater channel. This information was still coming from somewhere else, and whether that was a trail of breadcrumbs that I'd left to get back there, I don't know. But it was coming from a greater place, and of course, many of the things that have happened since have been confirmation of how I felt then. But there's never any way of knowing then that this was to come, and to be told that, you know, from the moment that you were born, you were chosen to do this, and you may not think yourself as a medium, but without your mediumistic qualities, then this wouldn't be happening. And so yes, I did. I felt very different in a inexplicable to a 7 and 8-year-old way. And it did feel alien, and even then it just felt that the ways of this planet and the way in which people do things, which has become decidedly worse since then, just didn't it didn't make sense, and I always felt that there's something more to this, because it's not a sensible and logical way to be running things.
I agree. I mean, to me, I mean, I was what you was called. I was called a rebel. I was a juvenile delinquent, you could say, because nothing resonated. The dead resonated with me. The beings resonated with me. The paranormal resonated with me. I spent most of my childhood in a graveyard, believe it or not, according to my friends at the time, and playing telekinesis games and all that, according to my elder sister, and telepathy. That was my normality. So, I mean, but still, the being is not with the mind. The identity is not mature enough to comprehend, who you are the gods. It's not there. It's a process of realization, and this is what I wanted to discuss tonight. So, as I said, one of my first areas that I went into was the dimensional beings, trying to find the connection. Something was drawing me. Do you know where your compulsion went? Where was your first research, or where was your first one? Do you recall?
Yeah, my first research really, when I was a teenager, I was very, very into Greek mythology and researching into Greek mythology, and obviously the gods and different things. And I was very, very much into, when I was going through schooling, and you're going through your exams and you have to choose what subjects you want to do. I was very, very, very into the English language, simply because I was allowed to write, and I was allowed to use my imagination, and I was allowed to look at landscapes and do a story and an observation in writing about them. So I was always into Greek mythology. I was always into writing. I was always into an imagination that was allowed to wander.
Okay, I'm going to hold you there, because we're looking at the similarities. So my first one was not Greek mythology. It was dimensional beings, ET, dead people. I was practicing mediumship at the time. But the next one was Greek mythology, the classics. I went in and studied and researched and fell in love with Plato's analogy of the cave. I was besotted with that. So I'm just trying to show the audience how there are similarities, but how each being will, through the process, go slightly different. But I went into, and I had this absolute love for the gods, and I kept saying, the gods are real. It's not a myth. What are you saying? It's a myth. And of course, I was laughed at, and everything else you could think of. They're not real. It's as I saying, the leprechauns are Irish family. The leprechaun, I know the Fae are real. I know they're real. They're real. And obviously dismissed again. So yeah, I like that you went on a similar path too, because I think the classics, the Greek gods, especially, many that have gone through this process of self-realization have studied these in early part of their life, and it seems to be quite, now in hindsight, which is a bitch, I now know why. The pantheon of the gods, I now know why. So you go on. What's next with you?
Well, I continued with that and writing through things, and I was asked to do various projects at school level to represent the school, and I used to like, I guess, being a wordsmith, really, and that continued through. And then when I was looking for a career and I wanted to do the career, then all that kind of stopped. And when I actually got the career that I eventually did, that creative mythological writing then became evidential writing. So it was almost, you're now starting to be tutored and trained.
Yes.
And my style of writing, it had to be for evidential purposes, which is matter of fact, to the point. And the judge and the jury and the barristers and all them are not interested in it's to the point. And that really began to tailor my style.
I'm going to jump in there, because as you well know, at a different period of my timeline, I went into crime. No, I'm not a criminal. I went in working in crime, serious crime. I went, and the skill sets I had before, all of that I had before, I had to take in, and I was really good at what I did. I was really good at what I did. So again, I can see how through your path and my path, and there's billions others as well, but it's just me and Michael tonight, how it's different times, but very similar path. I went into basically the same field as you, criminal profiling and using the psychic gift as well. I was more you were the arrestor and I was the freer. You were yin and yang. You know, I was working with the victims of crime and the perpetrators of crime as well, obviously, juvenile delinquents, trying to prevent crime. So see the similar, hi Eric, hi Ivana. God, everyone's in the house tonight. God, we must be famous. One of us is you, Michael. So after that, what comes next?
Well, what comes next really is concentration and dedication to the career that I waited so long to achieve. Yeah. And yes, I mean, for me, I always wanted to be response, which basically means you are the ones in the car, you are trained on blues and twos, you are the ones who are called at the time for the emergencies, in the thick of it, to deal with what is going on. Yeah. And again, there was no particular routine, ordinary day. You know, you literally could go from going to a school to cross the kids over a morning to make sure they're safe. From that, you could be the first at the scene of a murder. You could be the first at the scene of a hostage situation. You can be the first at the scene of a fatal car crash. You can go from a fatal car crash where you are the last person that some poor soul has ever seen, up until, you know, can you go and deal with a shoplifter at Walmart? It was really that kind of thing. And I always wanted to do that. And I
always wanted, hindsight, I always wanted very similar. I was a better one than you, though, because I was a kinder one. You just arrested people. I didn't do that. Okay, I didn't. I did work undercover for a while. I must say I did do that. No, but looking at that, I would say, and how does this resonate with you? Because I've come to this realization that when I came in on the darker side of life myself, the childhood, and then I worked in the darker side of human life in serious crime, the victims especially, the most harrowing things you have to sit and listen to, and it's so emotional, it's just unbelievable. And you did similar. So there again, it's like, let's bring them in, let's come in and go through these dark, paranormal is sort of first, then it's the darker side of humanity. You have to experience and be amongst that darker part of humanity, I think, to recognize it, that it's within each one of us. Does that make sense to you?
It does. And when you analyze some of the things that you've had to deal with, and like you say, you know, it emotionally, it's really, really up in the air when you are the first there, you know. And I mean, even just going to a really serious disorder, a serious fight. I mean, one of the last ones I ever did before I left was I went to a serious fight at a snooker club, and when you got there, someone had been hit in the eye with a snooker cue and almost lost their eye, and there's just two of you who are dealing with people trying to kill each other, obtaining CCTV, trying to preserve the scene, trying to find the weapon of offence, and you're dealing with 100 drunks in a confined space, and you know you really do feel like a wasp who's just found themselves in a beehive. And in order to be able to keep a cool head and to deal with these kind of things and to organise things, because bearing in mind in 6 months' time, you're absolutely going to be criticised to the hilt by a barrister who was safe in bed while you were dealing with it, and a judge is going to say, shouldn't you have done this, and shouldn't you have done that, and shouldn't you have done this? You know, and to have all that pressure on two people, sometimes even one person, it takes a special kind of character to do that. But if you can do that, then you can face pretty much most things. And I say that you can't do justice some of the things that I have seen and I have dealt with and I have experienced and emotionally I've had to come through and drag myself through. It is impossible to explain to somebody who's never done that. And
Yeah.
Thomas Nagel, who was a professor at New York University, once said all words to the effect of, you can understand every single workings of the brain of a bat, but you will still not know what it is like to be a bat.
Exactly. I
You've
mean,
never been
so
one.
it's these type of experiences. I mean, so working towards self-realization. Now, I'm going to kick off the next part. So I'm in this, I was working with young offenders and blah, 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 victims of crime. And then I learned this thing, which really opened another door for me for self-realization. And I trained up and I worked with victims of domestic violence. So then I trained up and learned about the Stockholm syndrome, which was a godsend for me, and restorative justice and all the things that go on with it. And as I worked with these beings, these people, and I was deconstructing the identity that they had been given in their relationship through the Stockholm syndrome. And as I was doing this, and they'd come out of it and say, that's not who I am, I had an epiphany within myself. And I was going, oh my God, if it's that easy to believe you're this type of identity, then who am I? And then I remember I started to go inward at that point instead of outward. And it was due to me helping others to break them out of the idea they had about themselves, the victim, I'm no good, I'm this, I'm that, you know how it works with the gaslighting and all that. So that was my epiphany where I started to go inside. Well, then I know I don't fit in this world. I never have done. So who am I? Where did you start? Where was your part where you started, instead of going out, you started to have, or what was the catalyst to go in?
I guess when I'd had all the experiences that I'd had, it makes you question, I think, your place. And it makes you question, well, if these things can happen, then surely so can everything else.
Yeah.
And the epiphany really was, okay, so if these things exist, and I'm now sure that they do because I've seen them, I've experienced them, and bearing in mind that, exactly, and bearing in mind that it's really a trained investigator, not to just jump into conclusions, to actually follow the evidence. And even when I've seen 3 massive cigar-shaped UFOs above me in broad daylight, I'm still questioning what else could it be, because it's never like come to a conclusion. So when you're having all of these experiences, which obviously was the tail end of my career, then you begin to question your place, and you begin to question your place in everything else, and who really, you do start to question, well, who am I? If this is not me, then who is it?
Yeah.
And who is it that is using this to amalgamate amongst everyone else? So really, I think it came with a certain amount of maturity following the things that I was experiencing, and it made me want to question, and it took my focus from trying to solve a crime, and then I started to try and solve the meaning of life, the meaning of reality, the meaning of God knows what it was.
I call it, I started to investigate me, because working in the field I worked undercover investigation, reports, and is it this, is it that, do I identify child abuse, paedophilia, do I identify this, I started to investigate me. It was me. And then started to recall the experiences, and they all started like pieces of puzzles were coming in. But still at that point, I have to say, shit was still happening, obviously. I wasn't quite there. So I'd had a few increments at that point. Now, so what we've done, I mean, the skill set we came in and we learned, obviously we now know with hindsight was so beneficial, especially in crime. We didn't commit the crime, me. If you just joined the conversation, we're not criminals. We were on the other side. This time, maybe we were someone else last time, but I then started to, as I went inwards, I used the skill sets that were transferable for in my case, I knew it was called non-duality. So I knew. But I brought in the experiences, the research of the gods, the Greek gods, the pantheon of the gods. I studied quantum physics. Then I hit astrophysics and all the rest. Did you bring in at some point, like I did, boom, boom? It was just going like, like you say, there's a download, but that's more of an internal thing. But this, I started adding more externally. Did you do that as well?
I did, because I began to research it. And once I began to research, then it was almost, an invite. And when I do research, I'll go in deep and I piece things completely together, and that's really what I did. And it was just really, really pure research. And of course, as a result of the research, I was also getting lots and lots of images and answers and questions and all kinds of things going on in my head, which was aiding the research, but was also guiding the research as well. So it was really, I made the decision that I wanted to look into things. I wanted to understand things. I wanted to have answers to things. I wanted to have answers to the things that I was seeing and what I was experiencing. And for me, the way to do that was to investigate it. And that's exactly what I did. And yes, it started off with Greek mythology. I mean, the Greeks and the mythology were telling us the exact same thing that we're talking about. The gods and the gods of Olympus is our own potential, and that's what they were telling us. So when you look into the Greek mythology and you say, who is Dionysus, who is Apollo, who are all these they are our higher God self. That is what they're telling us. And it does, the research has now become easy. It wasn't necessarily so easy at the beginning, but I guess when you started painting from scratch, it takes a lot to do a good masterpiece. But once the masterpiece is there on the canvas, then it is quite easy just to go on and just top it up now and again.
I mean, sorry, Michael, I was going to say that you made a valid point there. Until it becomes a masterpiece, you made a valid point, because I think when we all started the research into all these fields, we didn't know why we were doing it, we just wanted to do it, and we fell in love, especially with the Greek gods. Plato's Cave got it for me because it explained quantum physics. They knew it back then, and that was another thing. You've just raised that point too. What's all coming out now when we studied Greek mythology, and like Plato's Cave, I use that because it's a personal thing. He did quantum physics in his analogy. It was there, and I could see it when I was studying it. So I had that awareness. Then later on, when quantum physics come out, and I studied quantum physics, 101, by the way, guys, I'm not a physicist. I thought, oh, Plato said that. That in itself connected me back to the gods again. I kept finding. Did you find every time you researched something, it took you back to the gods? Did you find that too? It
does, because the gods are metaphors for these facts, and of course, I mean, everything. As I said before, when I began to research these things, I began to research the civilizations as if they were separate entities, as if there was no connection whatsoever. And it's striking, really, that wherever you look in the world, when you start to see the same numbers repeated, the same symbols, the same codes, the same words, the same things, the same metaphors, you start to think, actually, they're singing from the same hymn sheet here. And I soon realized that there was no difference between any of the civilizations at all, and how wherever you went in the world, it was the same monad of sacred secret knowledge that had been spread out across the world and beyond the world, and that the only difference is that in each part of the world it may have been translated in a different way due to the different levels of the people who were translating it. But nevertheless, the information at its crux, at its monad, was the exact same. It's the same, and they're thinking about the same things.
I found that I had this sort of thing in my head saying, well, the gods must have said, right, I'll go here, I'll go to Asia, I'll go to this, I'll go to that, all at the same time, and let's get ready to roll, and we'll go from that way. And I found that too. I remember, because I went and studied comparative religions, see, because I still had this issue with this God guy in the sky, the cultural raised Christian. So I went and studied comparative religions. I tried every religion there is to be. I was a devout. Whatever religion come along, I was devout. That's how I studied it. And then I come out, and that's not the truth. I was out the next. But I also found in Christianity, after going through this process, the process of self-realization through this man they called Jesus, who said, "You're all gods," by the way. And I said, he's just said we're all gods. And I would go to scholars and they would say, "You demon, you this." And I said, but this man, and Buddha said, and this one said, and so, yes, I am in total agreement. It's the same thing as if like there was a pantheon of gods plonked themselves on this experience. And from then we are them gods still going through the whole process of it. But the idea we have about ourselves, we think we're not. But there you go. We won't go there yet. You go on,
Okay.
Michael.
Holding on. No, of course, and what you also realise that there were advanced human races who were at a God consciousness, and by God consciousness, it means they were divine by virtue of the fact that they realised who they were, and because they existed on the seventh plane of God consciousness. Then when they set up a silent witness and a legacy to the knowledge and the sacred wisdom that once ruled upon the earth, those legacies are the monuments, monoliths, pyramids, Stonehenge, all of these different things around the world now, because it was the same crux of people that took that knowledge and disembarked elsewhere.
Absolutely.
And it was really those of a God consciousness who was able to design and make these spectacular legacies to their wisdom. And that is what we're still seeing now.
Today, they are the breadcrumbs we left at the beginning.
Yes.
I know this is paradoxal, guys. Stay here, stay with us. And they're the breadcrumbs. And it's when you notice that, when you obviously you see it's the same information, slight change on a translation maybe, but basically is exactly the same message on the whole of this human experience. And we put them breadcrumbs ahead of ourselves when we came in. That's what we've done. And I must admit, I have loved, when you're in the middle bit and you think you were separate from them, I loved that part of it. I did love that. I mean, that was a fun process, But yeah, okay, right, we've got to that point. So we left all the breadcrumbs on the earth, the pyramids, the symbology. So we've got there. So at this point, you have a good understanding that you are possibly, let's not jump yet. We're divine. We're some sort of divine thing. Right, let me kick this off. So I remember going through the process, going in all the religions, especially the Abrahamic religions, it says God breathed his breath into and created. So that, I thought, all right. And I was going, God's in here somewhere. He's in here somewhere. I don't know where he is, but he's definitely in it. So I had that going on. And then I had that was the inward way. I was going inward at this point. And then I had, obviously, like you, the gods on the outside. I was using my skill sets of criminology, to deconstruct every bloody thing I was learning. I was deconstructing it. I was writing, do you know what? There was one point, you can ask my children, I was writing on blackboards in my front room, physics equations and things like that, and the planetary system and harmony of the spheres. And I was doing all the divisions of this. It was amazing, Nokian stuff, and oh my God. And I did enjoy that process. I must admit, at the end of that process, I went, I've been all around the fucking world. I've studied everything there is to fucking study. I've read I was like this. and I ended up right back here. I went right all the way around, but I did enjoy. I enjoyed that part. That, you know, when you sort of notice, you know, like you when you give your presentation, and this represents this, and this represents, you know, I can still see the joy in you when you're giving that information out. It was a fun part of the experience, wasn't it?
The joy for me is the fact that I've been able to piece it together, and not only able to piece together, is to then share that information with people who have been denied access to it.
I know, I'm with you. I've got to jump in again because you pieced it together. No, you put the shit there in the first place, Michael. I mean, it was you in the first place doing all this. Do you see? I've got to add this in because it's tonight's about we are the gods, self-realization. You put that in the first place, so you've just.
I did. I mean, I, as part of the original consciousness, created the universe that I now exist within.
Yeah.
So everything that I see, everything that I think I see, everything that exists is because of me.
Yes, it's all about you.
It is, and it is a joy to piece these things together, and it's a joy to share, and it's a joy to exercise the positive side of silence, which is to speak.
Yes.
And I want to share these things because it's taken a long time to open my own safe deposit box.
Yeah.
Really. And we did leave these clues for ourselves to re-emerge with ourselves and to reawake ourselves and to reincarnate into a genetic line that we created. And we left clues. You know, we left clues. Now, if you imagine geometrically that nothingness is what we all were, but simultaneously we were everything, is a dot. It has to have a departure when it comes out of a dimensionless state. Now that dot, that nothingness, that dimensionless state, if it moves in any direction, it becomes a line. So we now have the first dimension that is created. A line potentially is limitless. However, when you exist in a world of beginning and end, or so-called beginning and end,
illusionary,
there has to be some kind of confinement. Now, the confinement for the line is a triangle. And the triangle, of course, is the manifestation of divinity in the third dimension. And that is why the triangle, the pyramid, is the shape that it is. Now, when you look at people go to a gymnasium to build their muscle base, to work out, to build their muscle base. What do they need in order to build their muscles? They need a resistance. That resistance is the weights that they are lifting. Now, in order for spirit to build its muscles, it has to have a resistance. That resistance is matter. So matter is the negative side of God. The positive side is spirit, but you have to have the law of spirit and the law of resistance, which is matter, in order for spirit to grow. We are the spiritualization of matter before we return as an enhanced spirit. So when you look at the pyramid, if you look at the building blocks of matter, it is the cube. And then you can bring in the number 8 and all different things, but the cube is the basic form of matter. Now, when you take the 4 corners off the top of a cube, you get a pyramid. So a pyramid, now Egyptologists are not going to tell you what I'm about to tell you. Scholars, famous scholars, do not know what I'm just about to tell you, but you soon will. Now, when you get the cube and you take the 4 corners off that cube, you reveal a hidden tetrahedron, a hidden pyramid. So therefore, the pyramid means you have found your divinity within matter. That is what they were telling us. Now, a pyramid, that is what the pyramid represents. So these advanced humans, they built the pyramids and monuments and monoliths by sound, incidentally, and they've left that clue because the word stone means father and son. Son means to build. Sun means sonic. It means resonance. built with sound. So when you see the pyramid, it is symbolic of someone who has discovered the divinity within their matter.
The
That
self-realization, the
self-realization of their own divinity within matter.
Yeah.
That is the pyramid. You are probably one of the few people now on this planet that know what a pyramid now represents.
I mean, I've got to say, Michael, I had a different take on it, but I was aware of what I agree. I knew that, obviously, but in a different way. I knew that. I knew that from through the initiation of what went on inside the chambers of the pyramid, and I knew it was for self-realization. Also, you know, and years ago as well, I was introduced. Now you just spoke about the tetrahedron, the cube, which was really fascinating to me because I went through a period of my artwork, displayed it, where they were showing me the platonic solids, which I knew nothing about at the time, and sacred geometry. I was studied sacred geometry, went into that, Metatron's cube. Oh my! I even drew it without measuring. And that's another way that I become aware of. I call it the symbolic way of understanding self-realization. And through that, I understood symbols. So I understood the pyramids. I had a knowing from a different. I come in a different way to you. But can you see again the two paths? We've gone down a very similar, but slightly, as it should be. It'd be really boring if we all experienced the same thing. Now, hold on. We're going to hold it there because in my case, there came the first mahusive wake-up call with all of the little bits, because it's all in increments, this self-realization, and it's continuous. It's always continuous, is when I was dying. That was it. I was dying, and well, the body was trying to die. And I remember I said, I can't take anymore, I give up. You know, thinking I'm a hero. Yeah, let me die. Yes, you do. The ego was not happy with that. You know, this is way back. And all of a sudden, this fear come up from the identity. So even though I was aware of intellectually who I was. I was aware academically who I was. I was aware through experiential experiences, paranormal, down. I thought I'd done it. Hello, I'm awake, everybody. And then I was dying, and this fear just come up, and I went, oh my God, what? And I didn't know what it was, but it was the worst, awfulest fear ever. And I heard someone say, allow it. That's what I heard. Somebody said it, or I said it, or God said it. And as soon as I allowed it, I said, this joy, this unconditional love, this light, it just went, I totally evaporated. Everything went away for how long, I don't know. And I was in this joy, and I shouted out, I cannot die. And then all of a sudden it went back in again. Got up the next day, I was perfectly healthy, as if I'd never been ill before. So I had a massive one. That really got me, that I knew I couldn't die. That's when I knew I couldn't die. And I'm bringing that in for anyone in the audience that are working on the fears that we need to work on. You know, fear of opinion, fear of lack, or fear of death. So did you ever have anything like that where you the fear come up, which has to be dealt with at some point, and anything shifted with you?
I guess generally one of the biggest fears that people have in the Western world is the fear of non-existence, because you know we are told, we are programmed that this is limited. Of course, it is in this guise, but when you realise that whatever happens, you will continue to exist. It can be no other way. Whether you come at it from a spiritual angle, from an oriental angle, from a yin and yang perspective, from a science perspective, every one of them is quite clear that things exist, and things will always exist in a different form. So really the biggest fear was in this world, I think, is the fear of death, because we were told at the end.
Yeah.
When you have an urge and a desire and an intent to analyze every single thing, even the word, then you realize that there's multiple meanings to things, and the amount of Christians and religious people that tell you must fear the Lord, you must fear God. Now, let's just analyze the word fear. The word fear in one of the oldest languages on earth, Hebrew, is ira, which means to know, to understand.
Yeah.
Now, when you know, when you understand, there really is nothing to fear.
No.
So it's not fear the Lord, it is not fear God, it is understand and know the God. Now, when you look at the word Lord and you're talking about breath and everything, in certain religions, the expansion and the contraction of the universe is God breathing. When in many ancient religions, when we breathe, it is not us breathing, it is God who is breathing. When you look at the Hebrew God, or the tetragrammation of the Hebrew God, Yahweh, YHWH, YH is to inhale, and WH is to exhale. It is breathing. Yeah. So when you look at what does the Sphinx of Egypt have now nose, because they are telling you that it is the breath of God. We don't need a nose to breathe. It is the breath of God that is breathing. When you start looking at the word Lord, bread, breath, spirit, expire, conspire, spire of a church, conspiracy, conspire, it all means breath. It is the breath of life. And the reason that bread and breath are held in the same regard is because the process of making bread, when it starts breathing off the yeast, creates the respiratory system of the human body. So Lord, bread giver, all these things, it all relates to the breath. When you look at the word God, G-O-D are three of the elements. And God creates with breath, which gives you air, which gives you the four elements. So the word God really is the four elements. But we have the four elements within us, and we have the four elements throughout creation. So you soon realize when you actually understand the meaning, when you understand who you are, when you understand what creation is, when you understand that everything has its cycles, when you understand all of these things, it gives you a sense of non-fear. It gives you a sense of relief. It gives you a sense of there is nothing to worry about.
It is. I mean, the whole point of this, obviously, the show tonight is everyone, my orange analogy, if I cut the orange in half, we're both going to experience the orange, however, differently, is that every being is going to experience this journey differently. And it just shows you're still going to get to the same point, but in a different way. Mine, I had a literal slap across the face, boom. And I knew I couldn't die. I knew I wasn't the body. I didn't go your way. Mine was a different way. But this just shows, guys, while we're having this conversation, there's many different ways to the same point. Many different ways to the same point. And the outcome of self-realization is the same for every being. It's the same one. Now, I want to jump ahead now. So what have you found through the process of self-realization? I mean, at one point, you couldn't tell anyone. At one point, I couldn't tell anyone I was a medium because, you know what I mean? Burn you at the stake. And there was another point I couldn't tell anyone I had been, abducted by ET until I come out the closet with Mary Rodwell. At what point did you feel comfortable when you really knew who you were? The idea that you had about yourself was, you realized, was not, and you were so assured you knew who you were. At what point did you come out the closet, so to speak? Like, boo, I'm here. What point did that happen for you? Was there a certain point, or did it come in increments?
Well, just continue with the point that you made, where you said there's multiple ways to the same point. I would say that there's one point with multiple different ways, and really, and it is, and what? How did I know that how I'd announce myself really on this stage, by having the confidence to speak from a deep knowledge base.
Yeah.
Because they do say knowledge is power and all these things, but when you can actually walk into a room with not an arrogant presence,
No.
but with a confident presence, that you can answer any question with evidence or through your own experience, and you have realized through meticulous detail and through finding things that you've done, you've put in the ground for for your own metal detector to find. It gives you a complete air of confidence, and wherever you go and wherever you project that, there is a confidence that is projected from the projector.
I'm
And
with you. Yeah, I'm with you.
when you get to a certain level of knowledge and understanding of how it is or how it's perceived to be, then that is when I felt, and that's really only been a very, 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 very recent thing. Probably even to this extent, it may be in the last couple of weeks, month, 2 months, to say, I feel like I'm now here. I'm here.
Yeah.
And when I realise, the depths of creation, what creation is all about, what my role is within creation, there is no greater strength than to go outside tonight and look at the stars and look at the planets and look at the moon and look at the sun in the morning and say, I created that.
Yeah, I know.
And then look in the mirror and say, I created that. And then look at everything in existence and say, I created that. Didn't I do well? Or didn't I could have done better? Or
I love hearing other people's interpretation through that, and because it will only inspire others to come out the closet when everyone gets there. It's only one consciousness. And I remember the first time when looking in the mirror, I didn't recognize who the fuck who's that? And I laughed. And it's like, it's a process. Mask goes on. It's like God's doing peekaboo, boo, and the mask comes off. And then you start looking at things, go, oh my God, I am all that, I'm this. And it's a process. And then, but the process goes two ways, guys, because if I am, you are. So I'd look at even another arsehole like me. I go, you may be playing the role of an arsehole, but you're the same as me. You're that. I'm that. And then the judgments start to fall away, because how can you judge yourself in another? And the process as it goes along. I mean, I've come to the point now, and I said it to you before we started the show tonight. I know nothing. I know no thing. I am here now, and that's it. Because the process is ongoing. The truths I had even a week ago have gone out the fucking window. Humble pie or what? Humble pie. And I'm thinking, oh, it's not that. And it's a continuation. If you could give advice, Michael, I mean, we've kept this very light. I didn't want to go too metaphysical or academic here because that's unfair. Just a glimpse of a process of self-realization. It's going to be different for everybody. There's something to ponder on, that you are not the idea you have about yourself, guys, okay? If you could give some inspiration, not advice, inspirational words to anyone out there who's on this journey of self-realization, because that's why we're here, no other reason, what would they be? What would you say? No pressure.
My advice really would be to put yourself under some kind of observation and really study who you are and the things that you do. When you look at what is the self, and really you can read 1,000 mystic books, you can read all of these things, but it all comes back to that one thing, the self. It's just in multiple different ways. Now, when you look at the word self, words are not just made up for the sake of making up a word. There's usually a deeper meaning within a word. Now, if you look at the word self, it has 4 letters.
Mm.
But what does that? What is contained within those four letters? It is the two letters EL, which is God. So the self L, so that the self is really the God aspect of you, and I've been fortunate enough to feel the presence of a higher aspect
Mm.
looking through my eyes, but I was
Yeah.
aware that it wasn't me.
Yeah.
And when you look at, again, materialization, it is
Mm.
the realization of the material. And
Mm.
self-realization is the same thing. It's the realization of self. When you
Mm.
understand who you really are, when you understand that it is only one consciousness that is expanding itself through multiple different mediums. Now, that's one thing. When you say that I know nothing, is true,
Mm.
but in simultaneous existence of nothing is everything.
Yeah. Mm.
So
Mm.
everything has to have a complementary half.
Mm-hmm.
That is why you have masculine, feminine, different things. It has to have a complementary half, and one of them will be in a manifest state. One of them will be in an unmanifest state, but they can change positions. So
Yeah. Yeah.
when you realize that every single thing that you see, hear, smell, touch, see in the mirror, see around you, is really just one thing having multiple facets.
Mm-hmm.
And those multiple facets are really just one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Brilliant.
my advice is to understand what you are and what is going on, because we
Brilliant.
live in a world that tells us to think small, to be small, and that we are small.
We're
How
not. We're the
how
gods.
can you be small when you are a universal creator?
Yes, I agree. Whoop whoop. And
And
it comes
that
right to any
my
word.
word.
Hold on. I'm going to come back to you. This just come in my head, so I've got to get it out. Um, to all the spiritual people out there, we've all said it, and I've said it, and we give it lip service. I am a spiritual being having a human experience. My inspirational pointers would be deconstruct that statement, break it down, deconstruct it. I am a spiritual being having a human experience. The obvious part that inference is I'm not human. Hello. Start with that one. Deconstruct that, go inward, and my God, everything jumps out that way. So there's another way of doing it. There's another way.
I am the ultimate consciousness in human form.
And so is everybody else. I am too. You are, you are, you are. It is that simple. It is really, it's like when we go through the journey we've just touched upon, we've only touched on certain aspects of our journey, but the journey, we take it so serious at the beginning. It's just so serious. We really need to do this. And we go through many journeys, quests, call them heroes, quests, call them what you want. At the end of it, it's like a cosmic play. God's playing hide and seek, and you are the gods playing hide and seek.
Mm.
And now, I remember way back in the day, it was quite traumatic going through what I was going through. I won many Oscars. I'm sure you did too. The fearful days, this, what does this mean? And I've got this new information. And it's when you come to the realization of who you are, there's no more suffering. You have fun. You don't try to fit into life. You are life. You become life. You flow with life. And it doesn't matter, even if it matters. There's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. There's no it's non-duality. It's one. And we have the Greek gods to thank, do we not, Michael?
The Greek gods and many other ones who are metaphors for this message.
Yes. I mean, I love that. I love Zeus and I love the Oracle and I love them all. And Plato, the wisdom of Plato and Socrates. I mean, it was all back in the day. They knew this shit. We today think we're all intelligent and I know this and I found out this secret, whatever, out on whatever. No, these guys knew this way back in the day. all that everyone's discovering now was discovered then. And they left it all around this planet and in the heavens as well, if for those that have eyes to see, for us. I mean, that's the joke on ourselves, is it not?
A lot of the Greek people like that, philosophers, were ancient Egyptian mystery school students, and they obviously took it from where I consider to be the epicenter of world in knowledge, and then that obviously went into Kabbalah, the Hebrew, which later became a regurgitation as Christianity. So yes, they knew all this. They knew astronomical law, natural law. They didn't use slaves. That they used the forces of nature. They had this to a T a long time ago. And I once said to somebody I was fairly good friends with, who was very big into science and very switched on into science and the consciousness of science. And I basically said, modern day science is an ancient knowledge, and his face just went. Because
honestly, it's like if Plato knew this shit, guys. I'm telling you, Socrates, they knew this. Pythagoras, when I studied Pythagoras knew it too. I'll have you know, they all knew it. Okay, even the Oracle of Delphi knew it as well. But it's just like, like people say. Well, for me, I see it as the gods came in, and it was the gods, the fractalization of one source, so, came in and decided to have this experience from the very beginning. And it's always just been the gods. There's no human beings, guys. Send a hate mail to Michael. Human beings don't actually exist. That's the illusion. And they took on the form of the human being and played the role for millennium. But with the breadcrumbs ahead of themselves. And then now we've got light bulbs going up all over this beautiful blue planet. You can see light bulbs. The heavens can see boom, 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 boom. Light bulbs are going, oh, we're back. We're back. It's the journey of self-realization. But it doesn't end there. Okay? It continues. We're now co-creating with each other. Instead of our individuality experience, we're now coming into co-creation with the other gods. Well, the original gods. Does that make sense to you, Michael? It's so much fun.
It makes perfect sense. It all makes perfect sense. It is really, when you realise it is an illusion, it is a dream, and you do realise that when we dream at night, it is really the picture making forces of the soul. Yeah. And depending upon what level you're at that particular time, depends what you would manifest as a projection of your inner self. So whatever is on the outer self is the projection of within. And the picture making forces of dreams are the same. They can become reality or the illusionary reality. Yeah. They can become an absolute realism. But it is really always a projection of what is inside you, and when you get to sufficient levels to actually manifest which one of those you want to, it really is all about making the unconscious conscious. And if you look at the analogy of the ancients again, of the waters, the oceans being human consciousness, whereas there's so much above the surface, but the majority, the unconscious, is below the surface.
That's got to come up. It's got to come up.
When you still your consciousness sufficiently, because you know and you can control that, then you allow other aspects to express themselves. Now, when you bring the unconscious into a conscious awareness, you then walk on water.
Yeah.
See where all of these stories are beginning to tell us these things. Yeah.
I even heard way back, and when I was doing comparative religions, and I was into some of the Islamic old scriptures and things like that, where they would talk about exactly what it's not really told to everybody, but they would say that when you die and go to heaven, you can do all these things. But that was just to hide it from those that wouldn't understand. It was hidden away even with them. But what I do with that, because we're in the 21st century and we are all what we are now, in my groups that I teach, multiple things I teach, my favorite analogy now is, right, you gods, we're all in the Harry Potter school of magic. You are amazing creative beings, and what you can do, you need to start to practice. And for me, this is the stage we're at. I mean, recent experience, I was shown how the manifestation, and we practice it in the dream state, in brackets. We do it in the dream state. You don't have no identity really in the dream state. You just create. You don't script it. It's just spontaneous creation. And it's now into this reality through self-realization. So I say, right, now the gods are coming back together. We're co-creating, but we are magnificent beings, all of us. And we can walk on water. Don't try tonight, though, because you really got to be mature in this, all right? And that's what I said to Michael before. You know, when the fires are burnt and you're coming through, watch arrogance, watch the ego. It's still going to come in. It's still going to try and, oh, I'm enlightened. And you're not. So you go slowly, and the universe, yourself, you've already put into play. Other beings will come towards you to work with you in co-creation to keep this sort of like oscillation of self-realization that will fan out to everyone. I call it the Harry School of Potter School of Magic. I know people, we are materializing things out of nowhere. I'm telling you. And that's what we can do.
And that's why we spell words, because it is magic. And
spell casting, another aspect I bring up in the group, spell casting, change the way you talk, the way you speak. Because every word is a vibrational spell. It will cast, it will manifest in itself. So this is the fun time, guys. And don't worry, don't say you haven't got there yet. That's just a thought. Okay? We're all the gods. No one's excluded. Even the arseholes are not excluded, all right? Even the arseholes.
Put it into an ancient perspective. We need to stop thinking and feeling what we think we are. We need to be what we are.
Absolutely.
And then that turns into a spiritual concentration where you realize that you are not looking at the tree, you're not looking at the mountain, you are the tree, you are the mountain. And then when you begin to realize that, you realize there is no such thing as separation.
Yeah.
And if there's no such thing as separation, then why are you trying to harm yourself?
There you go, you see? Look at the idea you have about yourself, okay? Play with it, have fun with it. Well, I hope tonight, I hope you enjoyed the conversation, because I have. It's about time this conversation got out, okay? And I'm kicking it off. If you haven't resonated, it's okay. Put it to one side. I hope you enjoyed the chat. You never know, later on you can get it out and maybe look at it again, okay? But anything in the show, if it's inspired you to have a deeper introspection of yourself, that you're not this limited being, you're not in lack. It's a belief system and concepts we've been programmed to have the human experience. You're not that. Just maybe, go and watch some videos. Look up non-duality. My guru is Muji and Papaji and Alan Watts. Way back in the day, that's where I come through. Alan, go listen to some Alan Watts, or Muji or Papaji, or just go on the podcast stations and just listen in to people talking. Everyone's talking about self-realization. Everyone is talking. We are the gods. Everyone is talking now about this, and I wish you a wonderful, wonderful, joyous journey. Thank you, Michael. It's been fun. Did you enjoy it?
I loved it. I always do. As you know, I'm very passionate about the things that I speak about. Yeah. I'm very passionate about people having these realizations, and sometimes being, enthusiasm, infected by the God.
It does, and it just, what you put out comes back. Law of attraction. So if I'm talking to you about it, it's only going to come back to me, and vice versa. And that's co-creating. So now we're co-creating. The gods are back. There you go. It's over. It's done. It's finished. The gods are back, and we're creating a different reality. So keep talking about this. Go and ask questions. I heard we are God. Go and read about, I think it's called the Red Letter Bible, where Jesus says, you are God. I'm God, you're God, we're all gods. Go and, whatever pathway you're coming through this of self-realization, you're more than what you think you are. And on that note, Michael, you're coming on a story from my other show, Open Minds, from last weekend. You're coming on, I think, did we say the 20th or the 22nd? You're coming back.
22nd.
22nd, we'll pick another topic for that day. I like my shows now to be organic. I think it's time just to let it flow. The conversation just flow. Because we all know nothing, okay? We know nothing, no thing. And we're just having the conversations. But one thing we do know, we are the gods. We don't know anything else apart from that. You would have thought, you would think, you must be all knowing. No, I know jack shit. I know nothing. I know what I'm not, and I know what I am, but that's about it. I don't know anything else. I just don't know. I'm glad lovely remarks in the chat. I'm glad you've enjoyed it. It's been so much fun for me to have an uplifting conversation. I'm back on tomorrow night. I have no idea who my guest is on Open Minds, because I'm giving all my attention to Michael here tonight. And I look forward to you coming back at the end of May, Michael. Keep doing what you're doing, because whatever you're doing is great.
And don't forget, enthusiasm means infected by the gods.
Oh, look at him, stick that one in. You hear that, guys? Enthusiasm means being infected by the gods. I'll get infected any day by the god. I should come out wrong, didn't it? Michael, stop it, Michael. You're just
innuendos.
As I said, Zeus, I'm all up for Zeus. I love Zeus. I don't know why it's always been Zeus.
Which is Suez, the Suez Canal in reverse. That's another secret.
I really don't care what it is, but Zeus gets me. I've been watching Thor on the these films or something. My son-in-law got me. I thought, God, he's sexy, isn't it? Oh, I wouldn't want a Thor like that. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I got this delusional image. I'm a god. I can create it. Okay. Of this Thor. Oh my God, yeah. I mean, so I'm all up for the gods returning. The gods, I'm all up for that. But then before we go, I'm finding that very, like synchronistic that all the Marvel films recently are all the gods, aren't they? They're bringing out, all the gods. And even Doctor Strange coming out, but he was in the other Thor film, the gods. I mean, it's sort of like, that's spooky action. That's a distance there. Self-realization on the planet and Marvel. What do you think about that?
Well, it's never a coincidence. They know what's coming. They know what's coming. I wonder if they'll ever do a 4-4. But no, they know what's coming, and they tell you what's coming, and it's up to you to read the signs. And comics and films and movies and documentaries and books and all of these different things.
Make of it what you can. But isn't that amazing? Hold on a minute, Michael. We both agreed that when we were younger, we were told the gods was a lie, and we said, no, they're not. They're real. They're real. The Greek gods are real. The pantheon of gods are real. It's all real. The gods came, but no. And then obviously, millions, billions on this planet are waking up now. Light bulbs are going on. Different varying levels. It doesn't matter. Self-realization is happening, and that now they're saying, oh yeah, the gods exist. Let's get you into the gods. They are preparing some to get ready for self-realization because they're gods, and we're all in cahoot with each other. If you know what I mean. There's no opposition here. Even your arsehole enemy is a god pushing you. As you said, you need the opposite. Yeah? To push you. That's why the arseholes are there. But they're gods too. So get over it. And to stop playing around and get your attention off it. They're pushing you. So it's all happening now. I couldn't believe how many Marvel, the gods. And if you look at the films and the script in the film, in one of them they had what's that? Gilgamesh is in one of them as well. In one of the Thor, I studied that way back. What's he doing in 2022? What are they trying to give to Gilgamesh is in it as well. They're bringing it in, and they did it in Mesopotamia, all of it. Okay.
They're bringing it into people's awareness, into people's consciousness, but they're doing it through. If you imagine, if you wanted to convey a message, and you wanted to convey whatever message that was, and you realise that there's probably going to be worldwide 25 million people that's going to watch your movie, then what a fantastic canvas in which to project your message, and Hollywood really, for all its sinister stuff, what it does do, it tells you what has happened, what is happening, and what is going to happen.
Yeah, and what's coming. Because we're all off ET now, because the whole world waked up to the false flag. Yeah, they couldn't play that. It's the gods now. The gods are coming, and the gods are here already. Actually, well, Michael's here. He turned up, didn't you, Michael? You turned up on time, and I think I turned up on time. I know a few others have turned up. We're popping up everywhere. But no, on a serious note, the change in the films that are coming out, and they're bringing back they're bringing back the pantheon of the gods, but even Gilgamesh, come on. And they've gone back to Mesopotamia. They're bringing in some factual experiences that have happened within a fictional film, which makes you think. Remember, they say it's black, it's white. If it's up, it's down. If it's right, it's wrong. And if it's wrong, it's right. Flip everything now. Flip it. Yeah, go on, Michael. What was you going to say?
I was going to say that is how they do coded language. When you look at evil, it's a reverse of live. So therefore, evil is a polar opposite of eternity. So they do all of these things in these riddles, because it's for the people who understand them, but it's also the conveyance of a message, and they're putting it back into people's awareness. And when it becomes within people's awareness, then again, that is then a new projection. And it is now time for that new projection. And it was always timed for now.
It was always timed. I mean, I'm not saying the dimensionals, which are here as well, you call them ET, they're here as well. And I'm not, got to be prepared for what you're about to witness. And I suppose these films are sort of doing it subtly, like giving you the gods, with giants, or whatever. Wait till you see the dimensionals. So they're here right in front of your eyes. And it comes through the process of self-realization. Everything turns up along your path at the right time. And when this is the example I give. Why don't I experience this? Why haven't I got that? Here's my analogy. Say, for example, I want to get from my place to Michael's place, okay? And I get on a train, and I get on the train, and I get off at Michael's town. I finished that part of my journey. I no longer need that train, do I? So I'm then going to go and get in a taxi to go around the corner to his house. So I'm going a different route. And this is what I'm saying about all the experiences that you're all having, whether it's angelic, ET, paranormal. And then all of a sudden you'll find when you no longer need it, you've done that part of the self-realization journey, then you'll go to something else. And you'll experience something totally different. That's what we've just spoken about through this hour-and-a-half show tonight, how we went from different areas. We went through this research and we went to that, and then it's like you're all over the place all of a sudden, but you're not in chaos. As you go along, when that journey finishes, it's a bit like The Alchemist, the book, The Alchemist. When that's finished, you move to the next one, and you only get what serves you for that time. But trust me, guys, you're all on this journey. No one's left behind. Not even the haters. And if there are any haters out there, send the mail to Michael Feely. You can get him on Facebook.
Well, no one left behind is really the meaning of only begotten. And we're told biblically that God sends his only begotten son. Begotten means wounded lamb, which falls behind, and begotten and only means one accord. So those who are falling behind must be brought forward in one accord at the same time, and that is the only begotten son of the Bible.
Yeah. See, he knows this shit. You see, he comes from his way, I come from my way. And I say, no one will be left behind. No one is left behind. We're all one. We're all fractals of one. All the gods of return. Isn't it hilarious? Isn't it hilarious? And it's just like, I wonder what our next creation is going to be, Michael. It's got to have a lot of humour in it. I mean, we do have a lot of humour between us, especially if you're bloody jokes. You know what I mean? I love humour. I love humour. I love humour. All right, before we go, he's got jokes that people go, no more. They're them jokes, yeah? But Michael, come on. We'll end on one of your jokes. Do you want to do the Jammy Dodger one, or what one do you want to do tonight?
I think I may end with, people say that I have a Messiah complex, but I forgive them.
Yeah, I love that one. I love that one. When you told me that one, I loved it. Do you hear that? He forgives me. Oh, do the Jammy Dodger. Oh, come on. It's just so B-movie joke. Come on, do the Jammy Dodger.
I saw someone earlier and threw a packet of biscuits at them, but they managed to get out the way for you, Jammy Dodger.
I love it, Michael. Thank you for being my guest. I'll see you in a few weeks. And to my audience, thank you so much for joining the show tonight. Until the next show, which is tomorrow night, but it's not Inception, it's Open Minds. I have no idea who my guest is. And that's okay. It doesn't matter. I will let you know tomorrow when I find out. Till the next time, thank you all for watching. Bye, guys. Bye, Michael. Stay there, Michael. Don't go anywhere.
I will.